Alrighty, good morning, everybody. We are looking at Tuesday, the 17th of Jan, 2023, which makes this day 17 of 365. God damn, it seems like such a long time. Was that 5% less? 5% would be if it was 300. 4.66% of the of the way through the year. Oh, it's one of those things where it could be daunting, but you have to break it down. I look at it week by week, right? So I'm 1/5, obviously. I'm 2 weeks in. 3 weeks would be 3 out of 52. It seems a lot less daunting than 17 out of 365. And so, yeah, it was one thing I used to teach my staff, actually. You think of any task, any day, right, as a mountain you've got to climb. Every month, let's say, for like a budget, right? Let's say you've got a $70,000 budget for the stores. They don't climb Mount Everest. They don't just start climbing and stop climbing when they reach the summit. They have base camps. They plan it out. And so the same too should be for any goal you have or anything you're trying to do in your life, stagger it. You got to set up base camp 1, base camp 2, base camp. It doesn't matter how many base camps you've got. The mountain might be massive. Maybe you have 7 base camps, 10 base camps, who knows? Before you reach the summit. But the unique difference with any goal that you're going to set is that sometimes the summit isn't the main focus, but the actual process of getting to each of those base camps, right? So if let's say in the context of running a shop that you want to, or running a business anyway, that you want to make a certain amount of money, let's say it's 50 grand. You got 30 days to do that. So that each day is going to be a base camp, or each week is going to be a base camp, whatever measurement you use, because maybe daily is too unpredictable, but weekly you can get a good trend going. You want to try and have a goal to hit by the end of the first week. So let's say 50 grand, you want 12,500 by the end of the first week, because that's a quarter. So then how are you going to break that down again into your daily tasks? Across 7 days, you need to make 12.5 grand. So how you'd break that down per day. And then the best way to break it down accurately is average it based on the amount of customers the last 4 weeks on any given day. So let's say on a Monday you had 30 customers one week, and then the rest of the weeks were above 40. You'd average it out, and it'd be sitting somewhere like 35, maybe closer to 40. And then you just break down the budget that you've got for that day by the transactions you need to make. Bada bing, bada boom. The only issue is then you got to be a shicey salesman. A lot of the time, it's a lot easier just to, be friendly. It's interesting in customer service how everybody's idea of customer service has changed. I have a lot of, I want to say, baby boomers. I have a lot of people, like, let's say older than 40. They come in all the time. And all I do is say, hey. All I do is talk to them, ask them if they need a hand, whatever. And they're like, wow, such great service. Mate, all I did was my job. All I did was the basic. But then there's other people that come in that, like, they would rather not be spoken to. And obviously I cater to that. But still, like, there's, they just, like, they're so happy with the current, I guess, climate in retail where people just don't talk to you. You walk in the shops and the staff don't really talk. And I guess it depends on where you're going, but it's interesting to see the generations change and, like, the expectations across generations change. Mads was at an op shop yesterday. She bought a book, Chopper Read 4 or Chopper 4. On the title on the bottom it says, like, the book they tried to ban. And we just started watching a bunch of Chopper Read stuff yesterday. Fuck, that dude was funny. he was twisted, you know. But I like to I like to look at people's thought processes, and not in like a weird way. I just like to I like to I guess understanding how other people's brains work helps me understand how my brain works a little bit. It makes me a bit more forgiving when it comes to things. So anyway, we're watching a bunch of skits, Heath Franklin skits that he was playing Chopper Read, and he always every video he was in, he started fucking hello. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, so we started watching some Chopper Read documentaries and stuff, and in like 3 documentaries you get to see just a bunch of things, and he says a bunch of things. And anyway, there's something that I've been reading about lately with this book with Maddie in our book club, Tuesdays with Maury. And then I've been reading another book called Mortal. I want to say it's Mortal, maybe Mortals. And it's about how the fear of death has shaped human society. And then on top of that, like obviously understanding a little bit about Stoicism and Memento Mori, understanding a little bit about Taoism and Buddhism, and the way that they view death. And I think it's interesting because I don't know really the definitions of sociopath or psychopath. Really, I mean, I kind of get them, but Chopper Read was labeled these things, and then in one of the interviews he was doing, for like the news, he said that he thought nobody could hurt him. And he walked around for his whole life like nobody could hurt him. And then he had kids, and he realized that he said when he had kids, he felt like he joined the human race. He felt like he understood someone could hurt him by hurting them. And it was the first time he'd like felt love and appreciation. And it's interesting to think that he didn't swing the other way, because you would assume that because he used to get wailed on by his dad. He said there was a story where he shat his pants because he was getting bullied, and then he went home, and on his way home he lit a fire, massive bushfire, and then he got home and his old man beat him up for lighting fires, and then beat him up again for shitting his pants. And so he came from like a loveless childhood, a loveless home, and his mum was a Seventh-day Adventist religious nut. And so obviously she wasn't much help, and then because of the way he was, she wanted him to go to heaven. So she would say, no, he's mentally ill. Like he's got a sickness in him, and so he would go and stay at these fucking mental institutions and sanitariums, or whatever you want to call them. Where he was exposed to electric shock therapy before he was of physical, what's it called, age, physical, I don't know, before he stopped growing. It was at 25. He was only in his teens, like 16, 17. And then, then he recounted a story of his dad. He would hold a ping pong paddle up for his dad while his dad would shoot it. And so just over the course of time, he was just desensitized to things. And he just developed, I guess, a callous disregard for other people's lives. And I think that would stem more so from a callous disregard of his own life. He didn't care if he lived or died. And he was walking through a cemetery in one of the shots in one of these documentaries that, and he was saying, how can we be so scared of death? How can you be so scared of nothingness? And I think that it's so interesting because it's so easy to label someone like Chopper Read, because he was evil. He confessed to being involved in 19 murders, or committing murders, or being involved in attempted murders for 19 people, and then he was involved in 11 others, he said. So it was 19 murders at his hand, and then yeah, I think 11 other people he'd like tortured or attempted murder or whatever. Anyway, he confessed all of those. He said he did them, but he never got convicted of that. The reason he spent most of his time in jail was because he tried to he kidnapped a judge and tortured a judge trying to get him to get one of his friends out of jail, which is obviously fucking silly. But he clearly with the childhood he had, he wasn't well. I want to say he wasn't that well read. Anyway, the book that he wrote has a poem in it for his friend. I actually want to read that because he wrote this. Just give me 2 seconds. This is going to be awkward, but this is the first time I'm breaking the fourth wall and I'm leaving this microphone. Oh my god. Alright, I hope that was a bit of entertainment. I don't know if you heard much, so I guess we're going to find out. Anyway, in this book, Chopper 4, he wrote it while he was in prison. There's a letter from the Department of Justice in the front from January 24th, 1994, where he basically gets told, no, you're not allowed to write a book because no criminal should be able to profit off their crime, and you have become notorious and you will profit from the crimes that you've done, so you can't write this book. So I'm pretty sure he waited till he left prison to write them. Anyway, this one's called Poem for a Friend, and I just think that Chopper Read gets such a bad name and such a bad rap because people can't understand why he did the heinous things he did. And I don't think he necessarily liked it, like enjoyed, hurting people and maiming people. I don't think he went out of his way and sought to do it. I think that, there was one thing where he was talking about a drug dealer. He said, why should these drug dealers be out here, flaunting their money, wearing $20,000 Rolexes and driving Mercedes when I'm here like a dog on the street? They've got no right to money. I've got no money. So, fair's fair. And so he only ever hurt like drug dealers and stuff. He only ever went after scumbags, people that he didn't like, and scumbags. And usually he said he got advice from another criminal once that said, don't hurt random people on the street because people will never forgive you. Society will never forgive you. But if you only hurt people that hurt people, then you can become infamous. And that's what he did. It was exactly how he did exactly that. Anyway, this poem, it's called Poem for a Friend. And I just think that for a man as insane or crazy or whatever you want to say as Chopper Read, I think this is beautiful. When all hope is long forgotten and the world has turned rotten, and you find yourself alone with no one left to trust, and all your love of life has just fallen in the dust, and you stand and watch your friends as they sit down to dine, and you hear their laughing ringing as they sip their wine, and you find yourself alone as you walk the streets and weep, and you go down to the river to ponder your final sleep. Your death might stop the hurting, but it won't win you the war. Your death gives them the victory, I can tell you that for sure. Cheer up, my bonny caballero, sorry. It's no time to whinge and wail, even though the winds of life are blowing you a gale. So mount your pale pony, and together we will ride, and just remember, brother, I'm always on your side. It's interesting to me as well. He painted a lot as well. I really want to get one of his paintings, but they're like fucking $7,000. But he had a lot of likening himself to Ned Kelly, like the original Aussie outlaw. And I think that the life he was thrust into, he said in one of his interviews, if there is a God, I'd ask him for an apology for the life he's given me. And I think Chopper Read is a perfect example of playing with the hand you were dealt. He was desensitized at a very young age to a lot of cruelty and a lot of pain, and that turned him into someone who, was aware, was sentient. He knew what he was doing. He was awake the whole time. That you can't turn around and say that he didn't know what he was doing. You can't turn around necessarily and say that he was a bad person, because this is just the age-old question: nature or nurture? Was he going to turn out like that because of who he was, or did he turn out like that because of how he was raised and who he was around? I guess, no one really has the answer to that age-old question of nature or nurture. I think the closest people ever got was that they think about it like, I can't remember who it was. I was reading about it a couple of years ago. But think of DNA as the trigger, or as the bullet, sorry, and environment as the trigger. So your DNA is the bullet's unchanged, but when the trigger goes off, how the bullet comes out, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain it better, but like, yeah. Part of who you are is already inside you. And I don't think people are born with the capacity for evil. I think they learn it. And I think that every parent just thinks they're trying to be a good parent. But some of them raise Chopper Read. Some of them raise Ted Bundy. Some of them raise, what's that other one? Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't think that those parents would have thought that they were doing anything wrong. And I mean, I'm sure there's also an argument that that those parents actually did everything right and those kids were going to turn out fucked up anyway. But I don't know. I just feel like if that was the case, there'd be a lot more little psychopaths running around. I think that something that you learn in Tuesdays with Murray is love wins. Love wins. If you're not giving, you're not living, I think he says as well. But love wins. I think if everybody felt love, and especially unconditional love, I think there's a huge part of love and a huge part of death, that if people were comfortable with both and accepted both and could understand both, they would live very different lives, but much more in tune with who they really are. Alrighty. Tuesday, 17th of Jan. Enjoy your days.